Here's what's coming up on today's show.
It's about creating the income that you need and safely creating that income so that you can trust it and live the lifestyle that you want. Having a big nest egg is great. Being able to create the income you need off that nest egg is what is needed.
Welcome to the Income for Life Show. If you're looking for some common sense retirement planning ideas and want to hear how we make the complex financial world simple, then listen up so you can learn how you can stay retired. The Income for Life Show is powered by Folds of Honor, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to providing educational scholarships to the families of America's fallen and disabled service members. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Nelson and Nick Schilling.
Welcome to the Income for Life Show with your hosts, Matt and Nick. Thank you for joining us today on your busy day. We appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us today as we discuss our ideas about proper retirement income planning so that hopefully you are able to stay retired. And like normal, I am here with my partner, Mr. Nick Schilling. Nick, how's your day going today? How you been?
Going fantastic. It's beautiful and sunny here right now. Excited to dig in and have a conversation.
It is. It is a beautiful, beautiful fall day today here in the Midwest, and we're definitely going to try to get out there and enjoy a little bit of it. Hopefully, wherever you are doing the same. If you're driving down the road right now and you're listening to us through one of our podcast affiliates, such as Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts, we very much appreciate you finding us online today. And of course, the most popular place to find us is always on our website at incomeforlife.org. Again, that is incomeforlife.org. And we have a great show lined up today. And what we are going to do today is we're going to talk about some numbers and some statistics, if you would, Nick, that everybody, for the most part, when they're approaching retirement, has maybe heard of.
Yeah.
They've heard of this thing that we're going to talk about called the 4% rule.
Yeah.
And we're going to dive into that a little bit. But the main reason that we're going to be discussing that, Nick, is because that 4% rule is just not valid like it used to be back 10, 15, 20 years ago. Agreed?
Agree completely. And there's kind of these rules of thumb when it comes to finances, the rule of 100, being able to go stocks and bonds, and specifically this one, the rule of 4% rule, is something that the environment is completely changed from back when this used to be a very valid way of at least thinking about how you could plan for your retirement. Right now, as everybody's so aware, the interest rate environment that's out there at your bank and in bonds and companies, everything is completely different than it was even 20 years ago. We're talking still in the 2000s. It was a completely different environment to where you could actually use this rule. Right now, we're at a tenth of that, and we're going to get in today about what that means and how that changes the way we got to think about retirement.
And there's a lot of people out there that are maybe listening right now, Nick, that they're saying, well, what is that? I've never even heard of that 4% rule. So if you're one of those people, don't worry about it. We're going to go through the definition of what the 4% rule is and how it applies and how maybe it doesn't apply now in today's proper retirement landscaping. Because, Nick, like what we talk about on every one of our shows, we are just of the view that in proper retirement planning comes down to a guaranteed paycheck, a guaranteed income for life. And we talk about it with our 3 C's of retirement. Every single time we're on this show is you got the checkbook, the calendar, and the clock. The checkbook is how much is in there. Calendar, when is money coming in every month, and the clock is how long it's going to last. So when you're looking at the 3 C's of retirement, but you are trying to abide by the 4% rule of retirement, it's a difficult scenario to get into to be able to stay retired, because the goal in retirement is not to retire, it's to stay retired. So if you cannot stay retired because you're pulling out more than what you're earning, that's where we get into trouble. Wouldn't you agree?
That's exactly it. And, you know, there's a reason we have this kind of theory and philosophy of the 3 C's is because when you get into retirement, that's the paramount thing that we need to think about, is how are we going to have a stable and preferably guaranteed income that we can count on? Where's that paycheck coming in, and how can we do it? Back in the day, there used to be this thing called the 4% rule. It's still out there. You can Google it.
You see it everywhere.
You see it everywhere. It's still a 4% rule. And what that was, in general, was if rates were normal, let's say back in 20 years ago, and rates at the bank for an annual term were 6.5%, you could pull 4% out and not eat into your principal.
And think about that real quick,
Yep.
Nick. My gosh, 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, the rates at the bank, and these are putting your money in a 1-year CD, right, Nick? That's what we're talking about here. I'm not talking about putting into a checking account. I mean, you have your money in a 1-year CD at the bank 15, 20 years ago. It was paying almost 6% annual rate of return. That sounds like magic now. It sounds like something that is so far off that you got to be kidding me. And it used to be a lot higher than that.
Correct. And we're just talking about something in the near future, this millennia, that we're not that deep into, of where how quickly this environment can change and how quickly we have to change our way of thinking about retirement and the strategies and tactics we're going to use to still get the same thing done. We still want to have our nest egg that most of our clients have saved so diligently to and sacrificed to save, and they want to be able to start pulling and using that money to create the lifestyle that they've set aside for in retirement. How can we do that? It's a simplified, oversimplified rule of, if the bank's given me 5%, I can pull out 4%, not dig into my principal, and get my retirement income that I want to be able to do it. A classic example is if you have $1 million saved, if you have $1 million in your retirement nest egg, and the bank is giving you a 5% rate of return. Well, that's a simple math says that's $50,000 annually that you can pull off of that and not eat into that $1 million. And I remember when I was growing up that was kind of the simplified way that people think about it. Like, well, with my Social Security and that 50 grand coming off my $1 million, I'm good.
Exactly.
But the environment's changed.
The environment has changed drastically. And the scary part is that this change is not going away anytime soon. Correct. So that's even more of the scary part, because if you do have the $1 million, and we're using $1 million, everyone, just because it's easy math, correct, right? If you do have $1 million in a nest egg, that this is my retirement money, this is what I have, I need to have a guaranteed income stream out of this said money. So this and my Social Security is my retirement income. So 15 years ago, if you got that 5% return and you could take that 50,000, wouldn't have to dip into that $1 million. That was the idea.
Correct.
And now the interest rates at a 1-year CD rate at the banks in today's environment, Nick, are what?
Well, it all depends on what day we're talking about this, but let's just say they're about 1/10 what they were 20 years ago.
1/10.
Yeah. So you're talking 0.5%-ish in whatever structure you're going to do. That is absolutely a war on people that are trying to save for retirement, let alone people that have to use that nest egg to then fund expenses and pay for bread and travel and to go see the grandkids. It's a completely different environment that people that are saving for retirement are in that mode to plan and save for retirement. And then also people in retirement have to take a completely different view of.
Correct. So whenever you're thinking about this, the 1/10, 0.5%,
correct,
current interest rate, and everybody, I get that the bank rates are different. You can jump on bankrate.com anytime you want. You can kind of see what the bank rates are right there. But everybody can agree that they're awful, right?
Yes.
Those rates are at all-time lows. But they're also not going to get a lot better anytime soon, because the Federal Reserve has already announced that they're going to keep these rates at this all-time low number for a significant time into the future. Yeah. But when they do change, they're not going to go from 0.5% to 6%.
Correct.
They're going to go up maybe 0.25% here, maybe go back, whatever it might be. So, Nick, we really could be in a time where having your retirement money in the bank and using that to pull money to live on in retirement, those days could be gone for a long time. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. And I think that's the impetus of why we're even choosing this topic to talk about. It's not that this is just a isolated snapshot in time of rates are historically low, but hopefully in 2021, 2022, we're back to 3, 4, 5, 6%, and things are more normalized from what we remember in history. The Federal Reserve, because of our current economic situation, COVID and all the things that are happening within the markets, they've already dedicated that that's not going to happen. So for the foreseeable future, we know that rates are going to be forcefully held low by the people that do that. So the Fed is saying that they're going to purposely hold rates at a very low rate to encourage people to spend money, put it in the market, and not just leave it in the bank to save. That's a war on savers, and that's something that when we're talking with our clients, we need to address immediately.
And that's a scary thing to discuss, and using the words that you just did, Nick, which is war on savers, because that's exactly what is going on. Because in retirement, there's only 3 ways that you can get income in retirement. Okay, and we have them listed. We can give you this report anytime you want it. But the 3 options for retirement income are the bank way, the Wall Street way, and the insurance way.
Correct.
There's only 3. Now, there's a million of each one of those 3, and we have to recognize that. And that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. And that's why Nick and I are always talking on
trying to simplify
on the Income for Life shows, or trying to simplify this process to give you enough information so that you can stay retired. But the bank way is what we're talking about here.
Correct.
Right now, the current inflation rate is what? 2.5%, maybe 3%. It kind of depends on where you're at, but let's go low and say 2.5%.
Yep.
Okay? But the bank rate is under 1%. Correct. So that is a term that I've told my clients a lot of times. Using the bank is, in essence, losing your money safely.
Correct.
Because you're literally not even being able to keep up with normal inflation.
Correct.
So if you are pulling out that 5%, because as we talked about, when it comes to retirement planning, it really doesn't matter where that 5% comes from, that $50,000 and that million that we're talking about. It does not matter because you need the 50.
Correct.
So where that 50 grand is coming from, you don't care as long as it's consistent and it's going to stay there. Wouldn't you agree?
That's a great point. And, when we talk about this and we have those 3 ways, we're talking about the bank way right now. But when the bank way doesn't work, rates are too low to make this happen. When you're in saving for retirement or retirement in general, it doesn't work. So what do we have to do? We then go to the market or Wall Street way. That's the only way that we can get enough return by going into equities or bonds and fixed income to earn enough interest to keep that account growing or to get the income that we need to be able to peel off of it. Well, what happens there when markets are going up, everything seems fine. But as we know, markets don't always go up. 6 months ago, they crashed. We've kind of climbed back. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But it's a timing issue. When you're in the market, we know that volatility happens. And we know that when you're in saving mode, you've worked to pay off all your debt. Now you're in your final 10 years before retirement and you're hoping to really pile in that nest egg. Or you're in retirement and you need to start using that nest egg. Taking market risk at that time is not what we need to be doing. It's not what we need to be doing for the things that we want guaranteed, like that paycheck.
Exactly.
And that's where we start getting people upside down in their thinking, let alone in their finances.
And we absolutely understand that, if you have that guaranteed paycheck already set and you're good and you have all the avenues built for that, and you want to take a little bit of risk in the market with the remaining money, go for it.
100%.
You can earn a little bit more potentially in the market.
Have your plan.
You can lose at the same time, but you understand that you can afford to take that risk if the other paycheck is already guaranteed and set.
Correct.
So everybody looks at the banks as a safety mechanism, right? A safety feature. Of course, it's up to the FDIC limits. Everybody knows what that is with the banks. But they look at the brick and mortar of my money is safe. Okay, I understand that. It's earning less than 1%. And you're not going to be able to live long-term into retirement with a bank way. You just can't do it.
And that's the way, Matt. You're exactly right. So when we go back to that kind of hypothetical scenario of $1 million, if the banks aren't giving you that 5% to pull your 50 and not eat into principal, if you do need that 40 or 50 grand, then you're having to start eating into that $1 million of principal to keep your lifestyle going. And we know that that ain't going to last for the 20, 25, 30 years of retirement because everybody's living longer and it's just not going to work. What else happens is, well, now what does that look like? So 20 years ago, it could be the $1 million to get you the 50 at 5%. That worked beautiful. Right now, with the way rates are 1/10 of what they were 20 years ago, now you need about $8.5, $9 million of savings to use the bank way of creating that income. To get that $50,000, that 20 years ago you could have $1 million. and earn at the bank 5%. To get that same 50 grand, you need almost $9 million in the bank to safely create that needed income of 50 grand.
And that $50,000 income is a need that is going to be there no matter how it's accomplished.
Correct.
So if you're the type of a person that says, I just want to have my money in the bank, I want it in the bank, and I need 50 grand guaranteed for my life. Okay, it's going to take $9 million in that bank way to do that.
Correct.
$9 million.
Correct. And unfortunately, not many of us have $9 million in the bank.
Just to throw in the bank.
To safely create that $50,000 that we're looking for. So we got to start looking at different ways of thinking about saving for retirement, different ways of planning, and different vehicles and tactics we can use to actually accomplish what we need. Because in the end, Matt, you've said it multiple times since we've been doing this podcast and today, it's not about the big statement, the amount of money you have in your nest egg.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. It's about creating the income that you need and safely creating that income so that you can trust it and live the lifestyle that you want. Having a big nest egg is great. Being able to create the income you need off that nest egg is what is needed, is what is paramount.
Correct. And in order to stay retired, you have to have a guaranteed income stream that will last your entire life. So if you have $9 million available to you, which again, Nick, we understand that not everybody does, and I get that. You know, there's two of us sitting right here in front of these microphones that don't have that $9 to $10 million.
No.
We're trying, right?
Yeah.
We're doing our best here.
I may have to up my savings rate to be able to reach that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if there was a way, what if there was a way where if you had your million,
yes,
and you needed 50 grand, right? What if there was a way that you could do that? Well, I'll be darned. That's probably why you're listening right now, because our whole idea is to help you stay retired in the most economical way possible, the cheapest way possible for you to be able to have that guaranteed paycheck for the rest of your life. So as we're going through the bank's way, the Wall Street way, now we're on the Wall Street way, Nick.
Correct.
So now you're in a scenario where I cannot have this money in the bank, right? I just not able to get enough return to have this actually do what I'm trying to do and make it last. So that way's out, all right?
Yep.
So now we're looking at the Wall Street way. Well, with the Wall Street way, you can absolutely have a much stronger return. But on the flip side of that, it can go sideways real fast. Agreed?
Yes. If you retire at the wrong time, if you start to save at the wrong time, and it gets a big dip in the market, which we know statistically is going to happen, then all of a sudden that whole plan is shoved out the window. It no longer works. So we have to start thinking of ways that if we're going to have to take the market risk to get the return that we need to create that nest egg and get the income that we want, then we have to start looking at ways. Are there ways where we can start to put off some of that risk onto somebody else? In a way, insure some of that market risk to create that income. Are there ways that we can do that with our nest egg, even just parts of our nest egg, to create some stability and guarantees in there where we're not having to own that market volatility? We as savers and retirees are not having to take on that market risk. Can we offload that risk, outsource it to somebody else like we do with many other aspects of our life and let them deal with the market risk? They just give us the guarantees. You got to pay for that, but you do it because the guarantees that it provides.
You're exactly correct, Nick. And I'm like you. I'm like everybody that is listening right now. When you're talking about, insure that risk, right? Have somebody else pay for that risk. So you don't want to do that. And I get it. Any time I have an insurance product that I am owning right now,
correct,
life insurance, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, those, for example, I never like to pay for it.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody in America that says, boy, I can't wait to write my homeowners insurance check this month.
Correct.
Nobody wants to do that, but everybody loves what insurance does.
Correct. Now every commercial is about how do you lower your car insurance.
Correct.
Through safe driving or whatever the commercials are with whatever carrier they are. It's all about lowering that bill. Nobody wants to pay insurance, but it's a needed safeguard. It's a needed vehicle for certain aspects of our life.
And with insurance, it doesn't matter what type of insurance it is. I don't care if it's crop insurance or you're insuring your pet, right? Every insurance product is designed to do the same thing. It is to help offset a potential financial risk. That's what it is. So here's a perfect example of how I can explain to anybody listening the fact that you actually like insurance. And here's why. Here's the scenario. You go off on vacation and you're gone for 2 weeks at whatever destination you were at. And you come back and your house had burned to the ground while you were gone. Okay? The first people that you are going to contact is friends and family. The second person you're contacting is your insurance broker.
Correct.
And that insurance broker is not going to come over with hammers and nails and a construction crew. They're going to show up with a check, and they are going to pay you the money that you did not want to risk, hence insurance. They're going to give you that check. So it's the exact same thing. But people don't think about that when it comes to their retirement, or especially their retirement income, because, oh, I can put it in the bank, but it's only getting less than 1%. Or I can put it in a brokerage account in the markets. Yeah, highs and lows and ups and downs and everything else. But they don't realize that they can insure that. And what I have here, Nick, is I want to run through some
good points here.
Some stats here on some various things that everybody in America insures for, but what is the probability of that thing happening to you in a given year? So follow along with me. That probably came out a little bit confusing, but let me explain what I mean by here. Every single year, every one of us in America has a 0.9% chance of dying. 0.9.
Interesting. Yeah.
0.9%. Everybody in America has a 0.9% chance of dying. You insure that risk, that 0.9 risk, with life insurance.
Right. Protect your family.
Right?
Yep.
So God forbid if you pass away, you're one of those 0.9. You have life insurance, right?
Yep.
Standard thing. Every single year, every one of us in America has a 1.2% chance of a loss of a car. Car accident or it's stolen, whatever it might be, you have a 1.2% chance every year of loss of your vehicle. You insure that, right? With auto insurance.
Yep. To protect you and any accidents and all this stuff, but we have to protect it.
You pay for that 1.2% chance, right?
Correct.
All right. You all have a 1.3% chance of a loss of a house. Something happens, maybe something floods, God forbid the fire that we were just talking about, hail, whatever the scenario might be.
Yep.
Right? 1.3% chance annually. You have homeowners insurance. Make sense?
I do.
All right. So just to kind of paraphrase, 0.9% chance loss of life, 1.2% chance loss of car, 1.3% loss of house.
I insure all of those things. Yep.
Everybody listening probably has all of those, more than likely, depending on your scenario. But here's the big one. Every one of us in America has a 28% chance, not 2.8, Nick, 28% chance of loss of stock market value in their retirement portfolio.
In a given year.
In a given year, 28% chance. So 0.9, 1.2, 1.3, you're insured up to your eyeballs for those things.
Correct.
28% chance of loss of stock market value. You insure everything, Nick, that you put a value on. Why would you not insure your retirement?
I completely agree. And it's one of those things, and why we bring up the 3 C's of retirement all the time is because we feel it's not, people don't make these choices because they're saying, I don't want to insure it. They make it because they're not thinking about things the right way. They're not prioritizing what they need the right way. And when Matt and I try to talk about this and simplify it, we try to give a structure and simplified of what is the priority. The priority is not the nest egg. The priority is the income that the nest egg can create.
Correct.
And are there ways that we can safely, securely, with as much guarantee as possible, stabilize that retirement income? Guard against that 28% chance of having a down year in the market. We do it with everything else that is volatile in our lives, home, car, life, all of those things. If it's vets for the pets, there's insurance all
everywhere.
Over. But
it's everywhere.
We don't think about it when it comes to the nest egg that we so diligently save for. And lots of it is because we don't know or we're not thinking about it correctly. So what we try to do in these podcasts and with our clients and the website and everything else is simplify it. Get people thinking about it in the right way with the right structure so we can all make better decisions. in retirement.
Correct. And whenever we are talking to our clients all over the country, Nick, and we're explaining how important it is to make sure that that paycheck is guaranteed for your entire life and the 3 C's of retirement and how that works. And we're trying to go through this in a way that we try to make it as simple and easy to understand. We call it just common sense retirement planning. Whenever you are discussing that with the client, and I do it all the time, Nick, we often hear, and I hear it all the time, is, Matt, where were you guys 5 or 10 years ago? And then the other thing that I often hear is, how come nobody explained this in a way that you guys do? Because they're like, Matt, this makes complete sense. I understand it. I get it now. It all works for me now.
Correct.
But I'm 68 years old. I really, really could have found this out at 58. That would have been nice. So I tell them all the time, I said, well, we're trying to get to as many people as we can. That's why we're doing this podcast, is to try to get people to understand that there are ways.
Correct.
You can do this. You can do this in a way that makes sense. You can do this in a way that benefits you. You can do this in a way where you have a group that can help you understand this, not only now, but down the road.
Correct.
In a way that makes sense. And that's where we always talk about how, some people build their entire practice based off of confusion and keeping people confused. You don't have to do this, because proper retirement planning is an elementary mathematical equation, as long as you know where the numbers line up inside the equation. And we were just talking a little bit about those with the 4% rule.
Correct.
Okay, everybody knows the difference between 1% and 4%. Everybody knows it. 4% is better on a rate of return than a 1%.
Correct.
And if you're needing X amount of income out of your nest egg, would you rather have a 4% or a 1%? You would rather have the 4.
Correct.
So there's no reason to ever make this confusing unless you're doing it for a reason.
Yes. And what does it take to get you that needed rate of return? And then how much can we take that risk off the table? How much risk do you want to take off the table? Because when we're talking with our clients and trying to educate, every plan is different. Every scenario is different. Even when we are going to work at your job and you're choosing your health plan, or you're choosing which car insurance or homeowner's insurance you need, everybody does it a little bit different. Some people want a higher deductible and kind of self-insure a little bit. We'll take a little bit of risk with it. We'll pay a little bit more up front, but then we want the insurance to cover the rest of it. Other people are, I'm already paying for insurance. I want it to be as big a policy as I can. Everybody's own circumstance is different, but it's the concept of, what do you want to insure? Why are you insuring it? And how much do you prioritize it? And then we work with you to figure out your holistic plan. How much do we need to take that risk off the table? What do you want that lifestyle to be? And then figure it out. It's not that difficult a conversation. And it's not that difficult of process to think through. It's just, if you're not thinking about it right, you're never going to come to these type of solutions.
You're exactly right. And when it comes to insurance, there's always going to be a price factor, right? Every time you are buying an insurance plan, you start shopping around, right? Whether it's your auto insurance or your home and auto combo, or you see the commercials, and every time you turn on television, you got Peyton Manning up there with Brad Paisley and talking about Nationwide and all the stuff.
Yep.
And you see all of these commercials out there about every line of insurance that you could possibly think of. And another one that is very popular right now is, of course, our world champion MVP, Pat Mahomes. I believe is a State Farm or Farm. Yes.
He and Aaron Rodgers are doing a pretty good job of making that firm some money.
They are doing it. But everybody can shop around, and they can look around for different types of insurance at the cheapest way possible. People don't realize, though, you can do exactly that with your retirement income. You can do the exact same thing, because when it comes down to, I need 50 grand, right? We were talking about this. I got $1 million and I need $50,000 out of that. Okay. Yep. What we often hear is, how affordable can we get that $50,000 a year out of this $1 million? How low can I go to make sure that I have this guaranteed? Can we do that with 800 of it? Can we do that with the full $1 million? Will it take a little bit more? What is the scenario? You can do that. And that's exactly what we do here at Income for Life. Wouldn't you agree?
It's the conversation we have all the time. So to even bring it back to that scenario that we talked about, creating that 50 grand. In the year 2000, $1 million could have created that 50 grand. In 2020, about $9 million.
$9 million.
To create that 50 grand the bank way. But if the 50 grand is what we need, we don't need to insure all $9 million.
Correct.
So let's figure out the lowest amount that we need to insure to create the income, which is the priority. That's the need. We just need the paycheck. Then if that's $500,000 or $1.5 million or whatever the number is to create that $50,000 of guaranteed income, then the remaining $8 million or whatever it is can go do a bunch of other things. Can go grow in the market because it can go up and down and you're not worried about it to buy bread or do anything else. Or you can set up other values for that. So it's doing other things for your legacy, for your retirement, or anything else that you want to do. It's about finding the cheapest insurance that you can possibly have, but having the priority to find the insurance.
You're exactly right. And like what we always talk about here on the Income for Life show is doing our best with our clients to create what we like to call, which is that peace of mind of knowing that I have this paycheck coming in every single month for the rest of my life, no questions asked. So this paycheck, along with my Social Security check, I have these two guaranteed income streams forever.
Correct.
So if you can get that, for example, $50,000 income need solved with a fraction of that $9 million that we were talking about, a fraction of that $9 million in assets,
Correct.
then you're winning.
Yes.
You're absolutely winning in retirement.
Then everything else has much more utility. You're not worried about if that $9 million goes to $7 million because you lose 20% in the market. You're not worried about what happens. You've already got your income, which is the priority, guaranteed and stabilized. What happens in the market, you can put that to other uses and just let it go.
Right.
And free up your mind to doing what you want to do in retirement and have your nest egg, the rest of the money, doing what you want it to do.
And I know that we keep talking about this $9 million, and Nick and I have already, expressed that there's a low probability that
not many people have this. It's just the scenario we're talking about.
It's just a scenario. So let's say that you are a little bit more, as we call it, quote, normal, right? You've been saving in the market. Or in your 401k, for example, right?
Yep.
You've been saving in that. Your company's been matching it. Maybe you have a brokerage account and you're throwing some money in there. Now you are 60 years old and you're a few years away from that golden retirement age. So now you got, I don't know, $400,000 in the 401k sitting over here. Maybe you got, another $50,000 to $100,000 in a brokerage account.
Yep.
And you've got your Social Security statement that says that you guys are going to be bringing in about $2,500 a month in Social Security money.
Yeah.
That's normally.
And exactly right. And lots of people don't need $50,000 every year guaranteed.
Exactly.
They might need another $12,000 to $18,000 on top of Social Security to guarantee their lifestyle, and the other stuff can be for the other stuff.
Because in that scenario where we're doing about $2,500 a month in Social Security, there's close to $3,000 or $30,000 right there.
Correct.
Just in your Social Security account.
Correct.
So really, all we got to do is solve that gap for about $20,000.
Yeah, they might need $40,000, $45,000 total to meet in a normal scenario, and that's stuff that we figure out every day.
Every single day.
And
So
it's finding the cheapest way to do it.
it's finding the best and the cheapest way to do it. There's a lot of companies, a lot of products, and a lot of different ways that you can go about this. But at the end of the day, what you need to focus on is I have an income need. I have set amount of assets to help accomplish that said income need.
Correct.
I have to figure out a way to have that income guaranteed for the rest of my life in the most affordable way possible.
Correct.
And that's retirement 101. It just, everybody has that idea, but then it just comes down to all the confusion and chaos of, I can do it. And Nick, you and I have talked about this a lot of times, and I tell my clients all the time that I'm a firm believer that you could line up 100 advisors all in a row, and I'm just of the view that every single one of them will say they're the right one and the other 99 are the wrong ones. Just consider it noise. Consider it a wash. And look at the elementary mathematical numbers. I have X amount of dollars available. I need Y amount of guaranteed income. What's the cheapest way I can do that? And the 4% rule, sadly, can't do that in today's economic environment.
Correct. A lot of these rules of thumb that we used to kind of go by and give a guideline for how we were going to think about retirement no longer work in today's day and age in the environment that we live in. And when we start to think about planning for retirement or living in retirement, what does now look like? What do we have to do to create the things that we need in the most safe and secure manner? And that's the priority. It is not about just saving so diligently for your whole life, creating this nest egg, and then just letting it go by happenstance. We need to create a plan, and we need to structure that plan to meet your needs, not some other advisor or some other family's needs. It has to be personalized to you, and that's the process that we want you to go through, and we want you to go through it with the right priorities in mind.
And you cannot use outdated rules.
Correct.
Outdated data. Outdated, 4% rule in the bank. Okay. It's not 1987 anymore.
Correct.
You can't do that anymore and be able to survive.
Correct.
And the purpose of today's show was hopefully to be able to give you some common sense ideas, common sense thoughts about how Nick and I feel proper retirement planning should be structured, I guess, should be thought about, not only whenever you are approaching retirement, but through retirement. So today's show was, again, discussing the 4% rule and how it could affect you and kind of what are the financial risks when it comes to insurance products.
Correct.
And hopefully we were able to provide a little bit of information today that makes sense to everybody, hopefully, that was listening. And
Well, I think we beat the same drum, Matt. You know, we're trying to stay consistent, but what we hope the listeners feel is an actual same rhythm through each of these conversations. You're going to hear the same beat that we're beating on this drum because we feel it's the most important thing we need to be talking about.
Right.
It's what we and our clients need to be having the conversation around, and we hope we're doing it in a simplified way so people can start to frame their thinking and ask the right questions to whoever their advisor is. And if you ever have questions for us, please reach out.
Absolutely. Again, our website is incomeforlife.org, and I don't want people to be thinking that we're always beating that same drum all the time, but we kind of are. This is very important for people to understand what's going on. But speaking of beating a drum, our world champion Kansas City Chiefs beat the drum last night against a team that I believe is kind of got some history of doing that to other people. Didn't we just beat the crap out of the Patriots?
They did. The Patriots aren't the Patriots of old, but 4-0 is 4-0 in the NFL. And it seems like State Farm has done a great job of picking their spokespeople because the two 4-0 teams are led by State Farm quarterbacks. And, we'll go there. They're paying those guys quite a bit.
They're paying them pretty well, but the 4-0 world champion Kansas City Chiefs are the first team in the history of the NFL to go 4-0 in 4 consecutive years. So I'm sitting there last night watching this beatdown of the Patriots, and I have a lot of friends that are on the East Coast, and I have a lot of friends that are listening right now that are Patriot fans. And the only thing that I will say to you is, we won, and we're going to move on to 5-0. So again, just like our show, we always wrap up our show every time when we didn't get to Pat Mahomes again. We never seem like we have enough time to get to the world champion MVP, Pat Mahomes.
His schedule changed from Sunday to Monday, so he had some other things going on.
And that wasn't our fault, because he had to go a Monday game instead of the Sunday game. So we apologize to Pat for not being able to get him on the show. The invitation is always out there for Pat Mahomes to be able to join us at any time he wants. And one of these days, we're going to find the time to get Pat on.
Yeah, we're going to work out the schedules. We're going to make it happen.
All right. Well, again, they're very much for Pat. You're here. We're here. We're ready whenever you're ready to go. Thank you very much for listening to the Income for Life show today with Matt and Nick. Again, powered by Folds of Honor. We thank you very much for spending a little bit of your busy day with us. In the meantime, have yourself a safe rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your day, and bye-bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Income for Life show. If you have any questions about something we talked about today or want to get in touch with the Income for Life team, just give a call to 833-450 833-450-3068. That's 833-450-3068. You can also go online to incomeforlife.org and check the description of today's show for any relevant resources and contact information. You can also find the podcast on all major podcasting apps, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and many more locations. The Income for Life show is powered by Folds of Honor, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to providing educational scholarships to the families of America's fallen and disabled service members. For more information, visit foldsofhonor.org. Information provided on today's show is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information is obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified professional before taking any action.